guys, and welcome back to the Centre Bounce. In today's episode, today's live stream, we're going to talk the preseason week 2.
That's exactly right.
Joe,
That's
mate,
exactly right.
how good does footy feel?
Mate, it feels good. It feels good. You can't deny that there is, yes, you can always preface everything with, it was just a practice game, but it doesn't matter because it was a game nonetheless. And we finally got players actually playing opposition, not like the Bulldogs and the Giants playing against the bloody Raiders or some Newcastle team. We want actual games.
The North Melbourne game wasn't much of a watch, though. Crikeys. As a North fan, I just felt disappointed and flat. Came in there with a bit of hype. You know, Clarko's back. In a North episodes have been doing well. We did okay against Richmond. Bloody hell, we walked in and just got slaughtered.
The fact that you were hoping for anything other than that, of course you have to hope, right? One can only be optimistic, but still, man, like, you guys aren't the best. You know, you have to at least, there is potential, right? There's potential. Your list is definitely not as much of a joke as it is compared to other teams, as much as people think that you are, but it's not easy, man. It's not easy to watch your team get smashed. I watch my team get smashed. It's okay. We're both in it together.
I got, you know, it's only preseason, but I still got roasted by a bunch of people saying, "Oh, nothing's changed, wooden spooners." You know, can't wait for September holidays again, can you, Big J?
Yeah, it is what it is, man. Look, there's a lot more excitement still to come because, look, yes, you got to watch your team get destroyed. So did I. But there's so much more football to look forward to and enjoy. And we're going to be talking about these games. We're going to talk about how they sort of played out. Some of the players that really did well. Some of the players that we sort of didn't like the look of them. So it is, you know, it's definitely going to be a really exciting stream. And I think it's going to be different compared to a lot of other channels. People just do their recordings, but here we're going to have some live interaction with all of you guys. So please don't hesitate. Comment below. Like the Duke here. To the Duke, we're really happy to have you here. Really excited that you're joining to have a look. The Duke, are you a fan of Newcomb? He looked really good, man. He looked really good this week. So thanks for watching.
It's really kind of the start as well of our Monday live streams. I think during the season, we're going to be doing regular Monday live streams at about 7:30. So, yeah, we're kind of starting with the preseason today and then going from there. Really excited to get started. And as Joe says, guys, really excited to answer any one of your questions as well. Supercoach is coming through. We've had some amazing guests on. We've got a couple of sneaky videos coming out that we're pretty excited about. And hopefully you guys can stay tuned for that.
Oh yeah, today's one. The reason why we're a bit late was because we recorded a very nice video. So
wait till tomorrow. Joe won't spoil
it's gonna be coming out tomorrow. So you guys definitely should be keeping an eye out on what's happening tomorrow. It's gonna be really, really good.
Yeah, 100%. Joe, I guess we'll start off with a question first, and then we'll get into the first game, which is Hawthorn Collingwood. So Corey asks here. So, Doherty, Ridley, and Dawson, or Doherty, Ridley, and Yo? For me, it's the first one. Being able to really lock in. Obviously, that's more expensive, but being able to lock in kind of 3 guys who potentially could be keepers versus, you know, Doherty, Ridley, and Yo, who you're still paying up to upgrade Yo. I think that's a much better option. And then potential, you know, 100 scoring straight off the bat. What do you reckon?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Causa. Really appreciate it. I do agree with you. Obviously, Yo has been discussed a lot this preseason as being one of those locks that you just have to start. But after watching him in those 2 games, interest has definitely cooled on him from us. I think in particular, there's obviously a lot of people out there that are really still bullish on Yo and his role. But from what I could see, it wasn't the best. He was up against the Crows, and the Crows were just really too strong for him. And he didn't really perform that great. He had to kick a goal to get to his 70 mark. And when you're paying up for someone of his caliber, you need him to go 90s. And I'm worried that he might not do that. So I'm with you on the first one.
Yeah, it's tough as well. Kind of everyone got a bit discouraged by the preseason 2 game. When we talk about the West Coast game, we'll see that as well. But if he came out and dominated and scored a 110 or even like a 90 to a 100 score, I think would be a lot happier doing that. Whereas right now, definitely, I think a lot of people have really fallen off Yo in these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Yo and Sheed were the 2, I think, big ones for the Eagles that I think a lot of people aren't 100% sold on. So it's, but yeah, thanks for the question, Cause. I really appreciate it, man.
I think we've got one more there as well, Joe.
Yeah, we got one here from the Duke, who, as I called it, yes, he loves Newcomb. Yes, thank you, all over you. I see you, Duke. Are we worried at all about Flanders' role? He's your F6, worried that he won't get any CBAs. Thoughts? Yep, your worries are warranted because this guy is not a CBAs. If you're worried about him not getting CBAs, then that's true. He won't get CBAs. All right, that's not the sort of player that he is. But worried about Flanders as a pick, though, is not 100% the same. They can be related, but they're not, guaranteed to have him be a bad player if he's not getting CBAs. He hasn't had any CBAs these last couple of weeks in the Pracky games, and he's still been getting a lot of disposals, and he's still been scoring really well. And he's just adding himself as an extra player around stoppages. So I think seeing his role in these last couple of weeks without Touk is a really good indication of what we're going to get with Touk in the side. It's not like his role changed or anything. We're going to see more of what we're seeing right now. And if he can score 70s, then that's decent. You want him to go 70s. You want him to go 80s. But if he's going 70s, then look, it's not the worst pick.
Yeah, he's only priced at a 46. So looking at kind of their mid rotations, he's probably number 4. So Rowell, Touk, and Miller. So Rowell, Touk, and Anderson are they're probably the 3 there, and then Flanders is in the next group, so that's still fine. But as Joe was saying, he's only priced at a 46, so should be able to score 75s pretty easy, and isn't a sub risk compared to a lot of other players. One of these things that we were talking about last week about how players have been spoken about a lot in the preseason, and then they've shown us stuff in the preseason games. It's a lot safer picking those versus some other guys who really haven't done much at all and then burst out of the seams in the preseason. Even guys like Callaghan, for example, people were still talking about him back in January. So picking him now is probably not as dodgy as kind of what we're thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks for the question, Duke.
How about we kind of get into the Hawthorn game first, and then we'll have another chat. Easy. So the Hawthorn game, Joe, bit of a different thing. Looking, coming into this game, I thought Collingwood were really going to dominate, really going to steamroll, and show why they won. Why they got top 4 last year. But Hawthorn really kind of held their own. Was that surprising for you?
It's surprising when you think that the Hawks are widely tipped to be the bottom spooners this year. Compared to a team that was 1 point short of a grand final. And then they added the likes of Mitchell, McStay, Bobby Hill. Like, you'd think that this team, objectively, just without doing anything, just got better over time. Another preseason under, their coach, a second year. So you'd expect an absolute mauling. But that's not what we got. Instead, we got a really respectable showing by the Hawks, who show that they're not going to, all right, fine, expectations aren't high, but they are willing to get their hands dirty, do a lot of the contested ball stuff, bump, tackle, and you never know. They might surprise a few people, but especially early on in the season. I do expect them to fall off a cliff the later we go down the track.
Yeah, so we'll kind of go through and we'll do our 2. Everyone on the screen can obviously see the stats. So we'll do our 2 biggest takeaways. So for me, my 2 big takeaways were Warble kind of coming in and showing why people had been talking about him. He's scoring from a couple of years ago, really shining through. completely dominated that midfield. Did have a few shanks, but I think he ended up with something like 15 contested possessions. So his score is pretty warranted there. He probably won't do that every week, but we don't need to at his price. So if he comes in and scores an 80, he's value for money basically there. The second one for me was Nick Dacos. So hopefully I'm not stealing your thunder there, Joe. But Nick Dacos. So this game really kind of showed why in the last week people have actually taken them out of his team or taken him out of their teams. The boy can just not handle a tag. Did all right kind of in the second part of the game, but really, really struggled early. I think he was on something like 4 or 5 possessions early. So, yeah, it's tough. A lot of people have taken him out, and teams will be targeting him with a tag because he was so dominant last year. Who's up for you, Joe?
Cool. Yeah, obviously Warple was the big one, but I think a guy in Cam McKenzie for the Hawks, I don't think too many people were on this guy as a rookie option, and I think he surprised quite a few people. People don't like spending too much money for rookies, especially if they're not going to show us that they're capable of scoring. But Cam McKenzie was awesome. Cam McKenzie, he had 99 Supercoach points. He actually attended one more CBA than Warple did. He had 19 CBAs. He had 73% time on ground. And I understand a lot of people are like, oh, this guy could be, what's his face? A Ward 2.0. But if you watch him play, he is not Ward. He is, and as I'm sure the Duke would probably attest to here in the comments, Ward, just does not have that poise and ball use that McKenzie does. And McKenzie, he was sensational. He would pause and let traffic go past him. He would split them through. The seas would just part for him. And he was such a clean ball user. I loved Cam McKenzie's game. I think he's definitely a fieldable option, especially if he's able to have that similar sort of role in the midfield.
Yep.
And probably what the other major takeaway is probably Tom Mitchell. Everyone was really, a lot of people, can't say everybody, a lot of people were really bullish about Tom Mitchell and him being value for the price. We ended up seeing him, he had 28 disposals, but of those, 20 of them were handballs, which is typical Tom Mitchell stat line, really. Absolute handball merchant with 101, Supercoach points. He had 19 CBAs, which is, the second highest number of CBAs that they were giving, with 85% time on ground. So, look, there are definitely worse picks, but I think this game perfectly showcases what you're going to get from Tom Mitchell moving forward. He's probably going to be averaging between 95 to 105 for your games during the course of the year. He's going to rack up his disposals, and they're all going to be handballs. So, it's a question. That's what you're going to get. That's classic Tom Mitchell.
And you're really not going to pick him over Tom Green now. I know a lot of people were speculating take one of the two, or I know we were pushing a little bit in the team review videos, hey, consider both. But this game really showed us kind of what was happening. Don't pick Tom Mitchell, guys. You're only going to be heartache. Let someone else take the risk, and then you guys can reap the rewards there.
I agree. Because you're going to be, if you're picking him, he's not going to be a top 10, top 12 midfielder. He's not.
No.
You're going to pick him now, only to end up trading him out later. So
100%.
Yeah, I'd stay clear.
So Lipinski got injured in this game, and obviously news reports coming out today that he's going to be out for a while. So that could free up someone like Ed Allen to fill the spot, or at least play a role. I expect Cam McKenzie to kind of get named very early. And another thing as well, kind of just further cementing the strength of Fergus Green in the team. 3 goals looked fantastic in that in the forward line, and Reeves and Meek kind of sharing that ruck time. So I don't think either of them can really be an option either.
Yeah, I agree. Fergus Green, he's a great player, and his efficiency in front of goal with his goal kicking is also really impressive. The only thing for me that I'm worried about is whether or not he's going to be able to maintain kicking a lot of goals every year. Their forward line stocks are quite thin, quite narrow in terms of their options moving forward. So he's definitely not one that I would have anywhere near your field. Definitely, if you're looking to have him on your, in your team, he's definitely going to be either an F, definitely a bench. There's no way you want him on the field. So that was that. And also, I think an interesting dynamic between, Darcy Cameron and Cox. Darcy Cameron, he had his 97 Supercoach points and he had 17, CBAs, which, were compared to Mason Cox, who had 14 CBAs. Look, you can see that Collingwood are looking to have Mason Cox play a really major role in the ruck. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no room for Darcy Cameron in your side. The only thing is he's going to be taking up a spot on your team that it's unlikely he's going to stay there. He's going to be one of those players, again, similar to a Mitchell. He's not going to be top of his line. He's going to be someone that you're holding in until you trade them out. There's so much DPP to come during the course of the year. He's not going to be a top ruckman and he's not going to be a top forward. He's one that if you're picking him, you're hoping he'll get his 90s every week and end up trading him out to someone like a Gawn who's likely to get forward DPP after round 6. Yeah. So look, it's an interesting one, that's for sure.
Yeah, and they're obviously playing a weaker ruck duo as well. So we'll see what happens against the actual opposition. Their scores will be dropping off by something like 20 or so points.
Yeah, I agree.
So we've got one here before we head over to the next game. So Duke was just saying Darcy now as his R2. Who's your best value ruckman, Joe?
Oh, you can't go past Marshall. I think Marshall is the best R2 option in the game, personally speaking. I think there's no doubt that, if you're not sure, watch his Pracky game. I think he already turned up come half time. So I think Marshall's definitely the clear R2. What about you, man?
I'd almost go a different view and say there's not really anyone if you're looking at someone like around that 400K, 4 to 500K sub mark. I'd almost say someone like Witts is the best value option just because of his versatility. Like, it looks like the pick's going to be fantastic, going to be a lock in that position, but he also gives you the versatility of being able to sideways or downgrade to anybody, which is huge this year. Last year, we saw a lot of people having to try and bring Witts in at a lot more expensive price, downgrading Grundy and everything like that, and they actually had a lot of trouble. So just picking the most expensive guy and being like, well, now I can afford anyone barring a Gawn for like 20K more. If the pick works out and he ends up top 2, fantastic. But you're not losing anything. You're only spending a trade, which now we have 36 of, to be able to actually bring someone else in. So, yeah. How about we head over to the next game?
Yeah, sure. Next one, we've got Freo versus Port. Port doing their supporters no favors in the, coronary heart, the health department there. I'm sure a lot of people have got a lot of Port fans probably a little bit anxious right now in relation to their prospects for the year. None more so than Hinkley himself, I reckon.
Hey, this guy's getting sacked halfway through the season. Oh, as long as their record's really bad when it happens, I'm happy as a North supporter because we got their pick 1. But boy, oh boy, they need some change. They're not even playing for the coach anymore. Something's up, and yeah, it's just not working out for them.
Yeah, look, Sean Darcy really gave them a lot of headaches that game. Sean Darcy looked absolutely dominant. He was unbelievable, unstoppable. They could do absolutely nothing to stop this guy. He went on an absolute tear. He only had 14 disposals for the game, but he ended up with 127 Supercoach points. You know what I mean? The big difference between this year and last year is that this year he had 85% time on ground. He is healthier. He is fit. Last year, he was neither of those things. And you could tell with the way he was playing.
It's something they really identified as well as a thing that they need to improve, and he needs to improve himself to actually help Freo go up the ladder. Obviously, they made finals and things like that, but if you can't play a full game of footy as a ruckman, you're a real liability. So obviously they brought Jackson in and things like that, but him getting fitter is probably going to help him and help him with his injuries too. Dropping like an extra 5 kilos, that kind of thing. When you're 200 centimeters is huge.
Oh, absolutely. And their midfield is no joke either. It's a very strong midfield. That Will Brodie is such a gun. I wouldn't even rule him out this year, to be honest. He is genuinely a startable selection for teams.
Is he one of your 2 players to take away from this game?
Yeah, I'll say yes. I think Will Brodie has cemented himself as one of the best contested ball winners in the competition. And at 563k, you could certainly do a lot worse than having this guy at your team. If he's racking up over 30 plus disposals, with many of them contested and clearances, of 16 CBAs, he went 117. This game. You know what I mean? Against Port, and whose strongest line is their midfield. And he had 76% time on ground. That was his biggest limitation. Last year, Brodie's biggest limitation was himself and his tank being unable to have high time on ground. His points per minute is ridiculous. So if he's able to increase his time on ground this year, this guy, this is a big call. He could be a top 8 mid this year. I know I'm saying this, and it's the preseason, but Will Brodie could be top 8. If he gets around 70, if he gets around 80% time on ground, he's top 8.
Yeah. Who's your other player, Joe?
I think the other one that is would have to be Connor Rosie. He's cemented himself as clearly. There's a reason why everyone's picking him. And he's just a classy, silky player. I had 20 CBAs. So he's getting all the CBAs that we want him to have, and 25 disposals. He didn't kick a goal this game, and he went 111. He's so capable of going 25 disposal and a goal. He is a lock in every forward line, I reckon.
My 2 players. So I've got 1 positive and 1 negative for this game. Obviously, Fife did really well. If he keeps scoring 90s, he's going to be a good pick. Sam Sturt's the one for me. So 8 disposals, 2 goals, which is fine, but scored an 80. So as a forward rookie, he's worth a pick, guys. If you're missing out and you need a forward rookie, you can play Alwyn Davey in that midfield and go and grab Sturt. I know we've just ruined a couple of people's pods, but for everyone watching, Sam Sturt's the way to go. The guy looks nice, and these kind of players who perform in the preseason are usually the ones that teams are trying to trial for the regular season. So he's 1 pick there as well. Henry's definitely a shout, but my other pick, the negative we've got from this game, is Horn Francis. So there's obviously been a lot of hype and came over from North Melbourne and things like that, but a lot of people actually had him in their super coach teams. Yes, he had 21 disposals, which is fantastic. I'm not 100% certain on the time on ground, but he did the same thing as what he did in the other preseason game, which is give away a lot of free kicks. The kid is rowdy. The kid is going to cause trouble. And you're not paying 380K for a guy who's only scoring 70s. It's just not going to happen. So someone who you really have to consider as taking out of your team. I think there's going to be guys like Tanner Bruin, we've spoken about Zeeble, who we'll look at a bit later, who are better options. So it's good that he's shown it now and not later on.
Why would you pay up for a guy like Nat Fife?
That's it. Yeah.
313K when you can get Sam Sturt for 123K, right? It's like...
get both. Get both, Joe. Just do it.
Nah, it's all about the value. It's all about value in this game. Someone else who was, fair value, I found was Josh Tracy. I thought this guy was not a bad selection. I thought he looked pretty decent. He had, 10 disposals and a couple of goals, and he even had a couple. And he had 3 CBAs. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him when Jackson comes back. But he took a few out.
Yeah, the problem is the job security.
So Duke was saying here, didn't get to bring in Brodie last year, which really must have hurt, and then single-handedly ruined his season, like we were saying. So he's not going to bring him in this year with a 563K price tag. It's interesting because if Brodie comes out and scores, 110, which I think he can viably do in this midfield with no more Mundy, that kind of thing, and Fife not taking a lot of that role, he's definitely worth the price. I mean, 600K is what, a 110. So Brodie could potentially come out and be worth like 630K, just off this week's scoring. he's an option for those guys who are really gutsy. And if you can't afford anyone else, if you want to try and pick the breakout players and guys who other people are going to try and bring in, have to pay up to bring in, he's definitely an option there.
Look, Med is on my side a bit. Med is, made note of the high time on ground for him. Yes, it was still under 80%, but his points per minute is ridiculous. If he's able to up his time on ground to 80%, then watch out. This guy is so good. And I know I made this joke before, but this guy needs to speak to an intellectual property lawyer. He needs to put a patent on that flick handball. No one can stop it. He just puts down and just a flick handball over. Oh, so slick. So slick. And I think a lot of people, yeah, it is. And I think a lot of people, Abs included, really was, a bit keen on the like set and forget, right? Yeah. After that game, it's like that dream just shattered into a million pieces, I think.
I don't think Hinkley's got a ruck that he can really play round one. I mean, Lysette's looking okay. I think Teakle's going to come in. They've got a few others, but they're really struggling now with like the loss of Laddams coming across to Sydney. They're desperate for these ruckmen. And as we've seen in this game, Dixon can't hold the ground in the forward line. Lysette can't hold the ground in the middle. They're going to struggle. So, going to be an interesting watch. They've got a really tough, first 5 or 6 games that they're not touted. Well, by the people who aren't Kane Corns, they're not touted to really win a lot of those. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think Med agrees.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think that's a very controversial call at this point, Med. Based on what we've seen so far, I think he might be on the money. Alrighty.
How about we head over to Brisbane and Geelong? Now, this game was very interesting because I didn't realise Geelong were going to get as smacked as what they did. But boy, oh boy, they got smacked. So it's an interesting one because Joel Selwood's left, but Brisbane really didn't have much of a forward line. So I think Hawkins was out, Jeremy Cameron was out, and a few of those guys are really kind of speculative for round one as well. So could see that 2022 premiers coming in a bit weaker than what we thought. On the other hand, Brisbane basically had a full team, came in guns blazing and really showed, hey, with our new additions into the team, we're going to start dominating, right?
Yeah, you just felt like the Brisbane feel like the time is now. They feel ready. It's almost like they're coming in armed to the teeth with weapons all over the point. They're like a gun merchant or something. They've got all of the weapons. Oh, AK-47? Yeah, we have that. Oh, you want a bazooka? Yeah, we got that too. Like they're just walking in fully armed to the teeth with weapons everywhere on the ground. It is actually insane. They are one of the most exciting teams to watch this year. Their recruits are also coming out with a bang. They're coming out ready to impress. Dunkley already talks to Dunkley. Oh, he could win a Brownlow. You know what I mean? Like he is that good. And I think we've already said this many times. Gunston is an upgrade on McStay.
Yeah, 100%. And if Brisbane could actually kick straighter, they would have won by a lot more. 13 behinds isn't great, especially for a premiership favourite. So need to really improve that kind of ratio. But outside of that, they're playing similar to what the Dogs, and we'll talk about it in the Dogs game, but the general kind of idea with backlines in AFL clubs has always been 2 guys who are really tall as the defenders, maybe a third as like a key, a rotator interceptor type, and then the rest are kind of smalls, right? Whereas the good teams now are actually running as many talls as they can in that forward line who are really dominant, who are really mobile. And it's actually showing, hey, in this game, Geelong just couldn't stop them. In the North game that we'll look at as well, you just couldn't stop them. Teams are not ready for good teams that have 3, 4 mobile talls who can run, who can kick, who can do everything and move up and down the ground. And I think it's really going to start to be the new meta in the AFL.
Oh, absolutely. It started off with just the one, like the evolution of the key forward moving towards the Kings, the Ben and Max Kings of the world, the Kernos, like that's become the modern footballer. And now teams are almost looking to do their best to implement multiple of those.
Yeah.
Almost having like a super team in the forward line, because you can't stop them. Having one on your team is already an amazing thing. Having multiple is just backbreaking if your opposition just simply does not have the cattle for it. Now, Brisbane and lots of behinds. We've heard this story many times before. When you got, Joe Danaher, who's a fairly inaccurate kick. You have, Hipwood is also historically not a very accurate kick as well. So you end up in a situation where, all right, you're going to have a lot of behinds. But the good thing is, adding Gunston, who is a very reliable set shot, also helps to straighten things up. You got Dunkley, who's a good set shot. Bailey's a great goal. Like, it's, for me, I know I've told you this off air, I think Brisbane's forward line is the best in the competition. Yes, we're going to talk about the Bulldogs later, but what Brisbane have that other teams simply don't is the mixture of the talls, the agile bigs, and the small forwards as well.
Yeah, Cameron does a lot for him.
Yeah, Cameron is insanely good. Bailey, he is class. He is so good. You know what I mean? You've got Lincoln McCarthy. He's also someone who is really, really good and underrated, I think, criminally underrated. They had Cam Rayner. He's now playing a halfback. But they have so many avenues to goal. It is ridiculous. That even the Cats struggle to stop that.
Yeah, 100%. My two big players from this game, I think I might steal yours, but is Ashcroft. I really kind of wanted to see where he fitted into the team and kind of how the dynamic would work. So I was kind of a bit worried about Dunkley, about, Neil, these kind of players taking a lot of points off him. Obviously, we didn't really see that in the game. Just kind of seeing how composed and things like that he was against an actual opponent as well is huge. He's definitely cemented himself in my team even more than obviously he was. And having, 200K in that midfield is fantastic. Now, I'm not going to take number 4 off you from Geelong. You can talk about him if you want. Someone who I will talk about is... I might go Stewart. So I'm wondering if he's actually going to be worth it as a pick. So Radigali has come in, DeConning's come in, a couple of other guys have really come in and shaken up kind of that back line. Zach Guthrie's kind of got a lot better. We saw the rise of him last year and he got a lot better in that game. I'm not sure if Geelong are trying to take a little bit of that role that Tom Stewart had away for him as the distributor off the halfback line, the way they kind of set up and make him a bit more of the general type, which could reduce his scoring going forward. So he's not one that I'm really inclined to start. Obviously, probably still going to be top 5 in the defense, but I think someone like a Doherty, who we'll talk about in a little bit, is actually going to be a better option for us than Tom Stewart. Who have you got, Joe?
Thank you very much for leaving Tanner Bruin to me. That's why we're friends, man. You like to do these things for me. I really appreciate it. Now, Bruin was someone that I don't think many people had in their sights before this latest game that happened. But he came out, and boy, oh boy, did he come out. He came out with a bang. He had 74 fantasy, but for 112 Supercoach. You know what I mean? Like, this is excellent, fantasy to Supercoach ratio. The guy only had 77% time on ground as well. It's not like he had over 80%, absolutely. And he had 19 disposals. But when you watch this guy in that game, it felt like he had all close to 30. His impact was really high. He had 11 CBAs. You know what I mean? 11 CBAs and 19 disposals. It was really impressive what he had. And 7 tackles. 7 tackles. This is what we love to see. And unfortunately, it's a player that has an absolute steal that Geelong has managed to take from an expansion club. This robbery cannot continue, AFL. You can't keep letting the Premier, bloody Geelong, keep ripping off these expansion clubs. They got Bose and pick 7 from the Gold Coast Suns. They've now stolen Bruin. It's not fair. I can't believe it. I'm so pissed that Geelong did this.
At least they actually paid something decent for him. I think they gave a first round pick. Better than Bose coming in the team and then getting paid a good player. Crikeys. Imagine if they had given top, pick 7 off for Bruin. Like, come on, guys. AFL, pick up your game. Who's your number 2, Joe?
My number 2 is someone that has asked in this question, Med. Yes, Med. Neil, Lockie Neal. He is criminally underrated, I would say, in terms of being a super coach option this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Very well, astute observation. That was the concern. The concern was whether Dunkley's emergence in the team is going to eat into his scoring negatively. But as we saw in that game, they did not. They worked in tandem, and that's just what you come to expect from 2 absolute guns at the peak of their powers. They worked together so well. Dunkley had 19 CBAs. Neil had 18. They both worked together so well. Lockie Neal had 121 Supercoach points. And the thing that Neal is able to do, the same thing with Dunkley, they're both capable of pushing forward and kicking a goal. They're not going to get in each other's way. They both can read the play so well. They both have a high IQ. And Neal, historically, is a great start to the season. So if you're going to get Neal, it's always great to start him. Because that's when he tends to absolutely pop off. And you never know. Some teams might decide, look, we're going to tag Dunkley because he's the one that's killing us more. Time will tell, but if you're having both of them in the team, you're sure to at least nail the one that really goes on a monster tear. I'm not averse to Neal at all. It's a fair shout, Med.
Yeah. Little bit worried about McKenna. And Wilmot scoring, obviously playing in the team's a lot better than not playing, but just wait and see what happens. Maybe in a more dominant game, they'll get 60s and 70s versus scores of 50s. I think they had a few shanks, that kind of thing. So don't need to worry about it too much.
No, I wouldn't want them on the field. I think they're definitely very viable options to have. McKenna had a couple of kick-ins, which is something that you love to see, and he plays on from his kick-ins as well. So, and he had 87% time on ground. So it just goes to show that, his fitness base is still there. He's working his way. He'll definitely look much better in this game compared to the previous one, where it looked like he hadn't touched a football in 3 years. So look, I'm not averse to either of these guys. I'm just concerned that Wilmot might be a sub. Is a great sub option. So, not on your field. I think they're definitely prime bench options.
Thoughts on McCluggage, Joe?
McCluggage, he looked good, didn't he? He was losing class. Everyone always rated him super highly. The thing with him is that there were a lot of times where he would go missing and just didn't have the consistency to keep, presenting all the time. And but it seemed like, he was well and truly up and about, and he just flourished having the 2 big ball winners in Dunkley and Neal feed the ball out to him. He's one that I think could really jump up, but, I'm personally not a big fan of selecting someone who is very much on the outside. He had 11 CBAs, so he's definitely got a lot. He seemed to be one of the primary ball, on the ball players for the Brisbane Lions. He could well and truly overshoot his, outperform his price, which is what, $570K roughly, for McCluggage. So look, he's a shout. I have to keep watching a bit more personally. What about yourself?
I think there's better options there. Before we go over to the next team, so Luke Jackson is a pod in the forward line. Bales is asking. Not for me personally. I think there's better options there. He didn't even play this game. I'm not sure why, but I think there's much better options. You're picking Bruin at a cheaper price. You're picking Zebra at a cheaper price. Yeah.
For concussion. He had a concussion, right?
Well, there you go. So he's not even played a senior game and he's already out due to injury. Not a great
Massive injury alert. Be careful. He's too injury prone. He gets concussions. Avoid him. No. I wouldn't go there.
St Kilda Essendon. So big fan of the show, was playing in this game, was pretty happy with his performances. But yeah, kind of your boys Essendon, I'll let you talk about them. St Kilda came out, it was a very scrappy game. There was a lot of wind blowing one way or the other way, which obviously wasn't fantastic for showing us who's going to be great, because one team would score a lot in one quarter and then the other team would score a lot in another quarter. Shame Essendon didn't score much at all. Brad Scott, yeah, it's an interesting one. A lot of people showed quite, showed job roles, which is probably the right term. What did you think of Essendon, Joe?
I thought we're shit. I thought we're going to continue to be shit. But to be honest, though, it's fine. Brad was telling us that we have to be patient. It's going to take time. We have a lot of shit habits that really stuck into the players that are going to take some time to break. I did really, really, really love the fact that we had a lot of forward pressure in the form of our small forwards that we hadn't had last year. Players like Alwyn Davey, having him roam up and down the ground and do his little fakes and create space for himself and hit targets was beautiful. I think he's done enough to cement himself for a round one berth. I think also Jai Menzie is someone that has done enough to cement himself into round one. Jai Menzie, he scored 62 points off 9 disposals and no goals. This is a small forward that's capable of multiple avenues of scoring Supercoach points, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Alwyn Davey with 67, and he had 13 touches moving up and down the ground. So I think these guys are well and truly options that you can have on your bench. The thing with Menzie is a bit more expensive at 150, 154 odd. And Draper, he did all right. Didn't set the world on fire. So I can't see the breakout happening this year. The more relevant, I think, primo, when we're talking Essendon, has got to be Jordan Ridley, I think.
Yeah. I'll let you talk about him.
I'll
let you talk about him and Setterfield before I give my two people, because I know you're desperate to talk about those two as kind of your two choices today from the game. So you talk about those two, and I'll pick my other two.
Well, Ridley looked to be getting that role that we all know and love, that made him score so well. Yeah, he shared the kick-ins with all the other defenders, really. But I think that just happened to be the case just on the day. I think come season proper, Zerk Thatcher will not be having any kick-ins, that's for sure. So I think Ridley will still be the primary kick-in person. He was the leader. He was the general back there. And he looked really good. One kick behind the play, a lot of switching. He was the one that was the distributor, and he was flying for marks. Had it not been for the insane wind, he would have taken a lot more intercept marks. I love Ridley's game. And my other player, who'd you see what my other player was? Will Setterfield, guys. Will Setterfield is a gun in the making. If he is given the role that he needs and deserves, and we need as a team, he can average 105, man. Don't you worry. This guy is a contested ball winner. He had 87% time on ground, so he was well and truly in there with 8 CBAs. He only had 8 CBAs, and he scored 119. This guy is so good. Yet you're paying up a bit more for him compared to the likes of Warpool and the other mid-prices. But my God, I don't think the other mid-prices can match him in terms of ceiling. So he's one that you got to keep an eye on big time.
Yeah, 100%. I think, so my two players, I've got one Smokey that we really haven't talked about and one that we have. So the one that we have talked about is Wayne Green-Miller. He looks like he's going to be playing that halfback role alongside Sinclair and taking a lot more kick-ins. So for a guy that comes in at just over 300K, he's really, really worth the value. Sinclair is looking to move up a lot more up the ground. And when they're not playing at like Icon Park, I think they're playing at Icon Park this game that's tiny. There's a lot more space for him to move around. Yes, he did shank a little bit, but the thing that you're looking out for is his kick to handball ratio. Kicks score points in Supercoach. He got something like 7 kicks just from kickouts, but kicks score a lot more points. So similar with the Ridley, how the kick to handball ratio is there. For these defenders, it's what's going to score you points. So definitely he's one to look for that you guys should have, or at least maybe you've got a Warpool and then Warpool doesn't work, you can sideways to him. Another guy who hasn't been talked about at all, and hopefully I'm not ruining your guys' pods, is Mitch Owens. So someone kind of came out of nowhere from last year, dominated in that midfield, but looks to be taking a lot more forward time at St Kilda. So Ben King's not in the team anymore. Obviously, he'll be back for a while. But Owens just seemed to do Owens things. I'm not sure if he's grown any taller, but this guy was taking shots. This guy was flying for the ball, and they're trying to use him a lot more in an aerial role. He didn't get a lot of touches, 16, but the 3 goals and the positioning that he did was fantastic. Really someone to watch, coming in at, 250K. If you didn't like a Bruin, if you didn't have enough money, you could put some time into him as a sneaky pod in that forward line, and I think you'd be very, very, very happy with it.
That's very true. They don't have a lot of players that can play up forward and can be targets. Yeah, they don't have tools. But Machida Owens just has a decent size, and it was able to bring him down. To just, even when he was out of position, just doing everything he could to negate the double team that was in front of him, and just try to bring the ball to ground as much as possible. And at ground level, he was able to really, put the Essendon defenders to the sword. We love to try and intercept using Ridley, for example, but once the ball hit the ground, it was in Machido's territory, and he was able to capitalize and kick 3 goals off the back. And he had 84% time on ground. A guy like Philippou, he's young, he's playing, in his first season. Yeah, he had a goal and 15 touches, but you could see that he was severely cramping at the end of that game. He might not be ready to really tackle the full rigors of the AFL and be a primary target. I think a guy like Owens, seasoned body now, he's got good size, capable of really taking you somewhere.
Yeah. So Johnny B's here saying you can't take all these mid prices, but the thing is you don't have to. You will be taking 2 or 3 in your midfield just for the way the value works.
Yeah.
If one doesn't work, you can always sideways. So right now my team, I've got Miller. Okay, it doesn't work. I can go sideways to Warple. If Hopper doesn't work for somehow, we can always go to a Setterfield. Callahan's in there as well. We can move those players around. So you will be having a lot of these guys in your team because they're valued at like 30s and 40s, and they will be scoring 70 pluses. That's your 150K, plus a rookie gets your premium pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. There's and Hopper has such high ownership. Warple, I think, has got quite high ownership as well. But as you say, you can't take all of these mid prices. You got to select the ones that you think are the best. And the amazing thing is with Supercoach, as you guys are very well aware, you have the first 2 weeks without any price changes, so you can always make the adjustments that you need. Obviously, it's not the best to use trades to fix things, but no one's got the perfect team to start things off. You always will have to make some sort of changes here and there, and it was we can see that the pathway to achieving success and a high rank is to be aggressive and to use those trades that the game has given us. They've given us extra trades. They've given so that we can make the adjustments that we need early. If a primo is not doing very well, get rid of them to someone who is. If your mid price is not doing well, get rid of them for someone that is. Obviously, it's if 3 of them don't work, then you got to change them.
So sideways 2. So you go 1 up, 1 down, bring in a premium, and then you go and bring in a rookie, whoever's going to make money. It's going to cost you 2 trades for the gamble, but if it works, it could be a lot better. So
exactly.
Go. All right,
exactly. And you shouldn't be afraid to use a boost early on if it means really fixing that game.
Yeah, corrective trades. So let's check out the Sydney Carlton game. Well, they've got a guy in this team who had a great game, and now everyone's got him in their team. We're talking about Big Errol Goulden there. So he's my pick. I'm going to take him off Joe. 45 disposals is insane. So it is a preseason game. They're missing out on Mills in that midfield, but you're not expecting that from him every week. If he comes out and scores like a 110, for example, he's already cemented himself in your forward line. That's kind of the big thing with him and with the price. And that's why I think a lot of people have really picked him up. People are saying overreaction. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. The second pick I'm going here. Let's have a quick look. So second pick I've got here is St Kilda. I'll leave the other picks for you, Joe. But St Kilda's the pick for me. Coming in at 102K. The guy is 26 and got brought in by the VFL team, the Blues VFL, and looks to be cementing that Zach Williams type role. He's done it before at the VFL. He's done it with Zach Williams being out. The team's now brought him in. I think he's ahead of Cowan in that kind of role. Maybe not people are saying skill-wise, but definitely you bring him in for that. Teams do not bring in mature age players and expect them to play VFL, especially kind of SSP when his direct replacement has now just been injured. So kind of one for me. I've got him in my backline if you watched our team review, and I think he's a big shout there. What do you reckon, Joe?
Yeah, I like it. I do. My big player that I think you got to take away is Sam Doherty. I think this guy, I mean, how do you not select him? 34 disposals.
Yep.
He's playing a split between mid and halfback. 153 points. He attended 9 CBAs and had 3 kick-ins. I mean, the guy is everywhere you want him to be in terms of scoring. Does this role persist when Walsh comes back? Look, he's already having sufficient backline time anyway, and and Doherty, he's such a great gull. The way he just picks up a loose ball and is able to use it cleanly. I think this guy, out of all the 600K players in the backline, he's the man. He is the man that you got to have, I think. Georgie Hewitt is one that I was really tempted to find and to find a spot for, but I think I'll go somewhere different. I think a takeaway is that you can't have Lachlan McAndrew. No, I'm just joking. My takeaway is Jake Lloyd for the price is not what I think. There are a few people out there that were hoping that Jake Lloyd, with the news that Blakey had glandular fever, was not going to play. I think I think we've seen that Blakey is back in a really big way. Not only is Blakey playing that halfback role, you've got Florent who's also helping out in that halfback role. So I think the Lloyd pick is well and truly dead. So I'm very sorry for all those guys who are hoping to have a bit of a pod in the old Jake Lloyd Seagull, but those days are over. And I agree, Med. Doc is an absolute super. Doc is a lock. You got to lock Doc in. And he's 100%. He's really, really good. First proper preseason. He did so well last year. Obviously had an interrupted, return. This year, he's well and truly on the rise.
McAndrew is probably one as well who a lot of people had him potentially even at R2, and now he's out of their team. So don't pick him. I think there's better options. Just take the loophole, and save yourself 20K.
1 disposal. He had 1 solitary disposal.
It's not great. I wasn't expecting Carlton to be this damaged, especially with Curnow and the other players back. Obviously, no Sam Walsh. I don't even think Cripps played, just looking at the scoring sheet. Cripps didn't play, so that's something different. But, preseason games, I don't think it's as big of a worry. But you will need to make finals. I think you have to make finals. As a Carlton fan, you really have to. Otherwise, your season's in trouble. Your team's in trouble, really. And then something drastically needs to change.
Yep, I agree. Perfect.
Next game?
I guess we'll move on to the next game. West Coast versus Adelaide. The Crom.
I'll let you go first.
They crominated West Coast. They crominated them. It was insane, especially early. You're watching in that first quarter. It was like we need to implement the mercy rule into this game because they had to find a way to wave a white flag. They were suffocated. They suffocated the life out of them. My goodness, the Crows looked sensational. Yes, they were playing against the Eagles, but the Eagles had most of their players back. They had most of their Premiership players. Yes, of course, they didn't have Nick Nat, but the thing is, they never have Nick Nat. So you can't consider that an out, really, at this point. But the Crows looked so good. Their forward pressure was elite. Their forward line is sensational. Darcy Fogarty wants to win a Coleman. He wants to win all of the bets that people have.
He wants to make finals.
That is irrelevant. He wants all of the goals. It is insane how good he is, and people still have to put respect on Tex Walker. Even at this age, that racist man is so good at football. It is unbelievable. He is a very good player. They're a sneaky chance to make the 8 this year. The Crows are really, really promising.
Yeah, they've definitely pushed themselves out of being kind of that bottom 4 group, at least into the next group, from 12 to like 9 or 8 that are actually pushing for finals. I don't know if they'll do it this year, but the likes of Rankin coming in, Laird obviously going on a massive tear. They just look fantastic. Who's your 2 picks, Joe? And then I'll give mine.
Look, I gotta go and say I'm sorry about this, but I'm gonna go Rory Laird. The dude's Laird. Laird is Laird. He is inevitable. He is an absolute gun. 32 disposals, 2 goals, 20 CBAs. So it's his midfield. He only had 73% time on ground, and the guy went 151. He was just taking the P155. It is ridiculous. He absolutely killed them with ease. I think this guy, if you're going to select someone who's 700K, you 100% select Laird and not Clary. My other one that I want to talk about is actually Jordan Dawson. I have no idea how this guy got 105 Supercoach points when the ball, especially early on, this guy just needs a couple of intercepts, and he's such a clean ball user. He doesn't need a lot of the ball to ton up. Even in a game where they more than doubled the score of the opposition, he still tonned up.
So, you know what it is, Joe?
What?
That high kick to handball ratio.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. The guy loves to kick, and they know. And the Crows want him to kick the ball because he's such a clean ball user. And he had 5 kick-ins. You know what I mean? It wasn't an immense number of kick-ins. It was only 5. And yet the guy still tonned up in a smashing. I think this guy is, he's 100% lock for top 3 maybe defender.
My 2 picks. So my one's kind of one, and then the second one split into 2. So Jinby's the one for me. I think you were leaving him open for me just there. The kid came out and dominated, played halfback, played some mid-time as well, and just kind of showed us why we should pick him. I think the game before, he didn't play the intra-club because he had this sore foot issue. Did his toe, but then this game just came out and had a blinder. He's not going to score a 99 every week. He probably won't score an 80 every week. But if he can come out and score a 70 at 178K or something, let me just quickly check. 171K. He's a fantastic choice, and a fieldable rookie option, which I think is a big thing for us in Supercoach at the moment. We need rookies who will play, and he's definitely one that can do that. The 2 guys who I'm going to talk about now is Yo and Sheed. So for basically the same reasons. I wanted these guys to come out and do well. West Coast didn't necessarily need to dominate the game and win, but I really needed them to show something and force themselves back into my team. Yo's now out. Sheed's now out. I think a lot of people are doing the same thing, and it's kind of really changed things up. This is probably one of the biggest changes that a lot of people have done outside of bringing in, your Flanders and your Callaghan, those types. 4 teams this year and 4 teams in the last preseason game as well. So they're kind of my 2 picks. They're not in my team anymore. Yes, they may come out and score 80s, which is fine. But for me, it's definitely a no. Tom Cole could also be a pick. But the fact that he didn't score, an 80 in a game where they got slaughtered doesn't give me much hopes for his backline dominance.
Sheed and Yo, you can't take 80s from them. If you're paying 330 odd for them, you want 90s out of them. 80s won't cut it. So from what I saw, they didn't look good, to be completely honest with you. And I wasn't a big fan. Yo only had 67% time on ground, and he had to kick a goal for him to get to get a score in the 70s. Didn't really look good. Sheed was thereabouts, and there were a number of occasions where he was really close to getting the ball, but an Adelaide player just got in the way. He just didn't look like he had the speed that is required for the modern day midfield in this modern day game. I wasn't a big fan of it, and look, he's always going to be there. If I have to sideways or make any sort of corrective trade, he'll be there for the first 2 weeks. But personally, I'm not the biggest fan of what they showed. Man, Jimby scored what he did off 56% time on ground.
Yeah,
56.
It's good.
56% time on ground for 99 points. The kid is a gun.
Yeah. Very fieldable option, which is kind of what we're looking for. So,
yeah, I agree. I thought Sam Berry was a bit was one of the, I think, the disappointment maybe. I guess you can say scoring wise for the Crows. He had 17 CBA. So him and Laird basically. Laird had 20, Berry had 17. So he had a lot of CBAs. But it just seemed really weird how he had 2 goals and 19 disposals, but the guy only ended up on 86. You know what I mean? Like if with 2 goals to your name and you're finishing on 86, well, we know whose midfield this belongs to. We know who's getting all the points. Rory Laird ain't sharing the ball with you, young boy. Yeah. He's getting all the stats. The stats are his. Greatest stat patter in the game. He's like the LeBron James of the AFL.
For me, it's probably Rankin if we had to pick one. His team scored 17 goals. He's 17 goals, guys. 17 goals, and he only had 1. So I'm not sure kind of what he was doing, if with his 13 touches he was passing it off, if he had less time on ground. But, for the people that were considering him as a pod, Keys won't score 4 goals every game. Fogarty won't score 4 goals. There'll be times when Rankin comes in, but I would have liked him to join in a bit more and kick, 2 or 3 to really cement kind of and show the fans, hey, this is what we paid up to bring him in.
The only time Fogarty does not kick 4 goals is when he kicks 1 goal 5 or something.
Yeah, 5 goals.
Or 5 goals. Fogarty looks dangerous.
Laird looks dangerous because now he's actually added goal kicking to his arsenal as well, which is huge.
Potential.
No longer is he just the guy that goes in the middle. He's the guy that runs forward and kicks goals. So
yeah,
it's fantastic.
Potential winner.
This game. Oi. So I'll go first, I guess. GWS came out and smashed. Not for the reasons why I thought. I thought Gold Coast would give them a little bit more. I think we saw how competitive they are against an actual team without Touk, and it doesn't look great. Now, there's an article that came out today saying, hey, I think, Touk's going to be able to play round 1, but, big wait and see there. Flanders did well, but I guess kind of GWS has really shown that, hey, we're not just like a bottom tier team. A lot of people have got them penciled for, a bottom like 3 or 4 side. And I really think that they might actually be able to push a lot higher. Yes, they've lost Taranto. Yes, they've lost Hopper. But Kelly on fire, people forget how good this guy is. He's going to get 30 disposals every game. And now he's got Green, who actually hits the ball out to him from a ruck contest or from a congestion and allows him to do that. If they had an actual ruckman, I think they'd be really scary. Yes, Bruce played. Yes, Flynn played. But, if they had Grundy or Gawn, boy, oh boy, they'd be a bit scary. My 2 takeaways, I'm going to steal Callaghan, Joe. I think the kid's fantastic. We spoke about him in the preseason, and he kind of showed again why he's done as well as what he has. So he's my pick. He's in my team, 226K or something crazy. If you don't have him, you're a bit silly. The second player I've got, let's have a quick think.
Really?
I'm going to pick
it was a clear one for you.
I'm going to go Flanders. So I'm going to give you a couple of other options, but I'm going Flanders. So similar to a Callaghan, similar price, a guy that we have talked about in the preseason a lot and heard a lot about. This was the game that these 2 guys came in and really showed you why they should be in your teams. Yes, teams are getting a lot closer in kind of togetherness, but at least at the start. But, value shows itself to the top. And these guys are pure value. They won't be scoring 100s every week, but you take 75s and they're going to make you that 150K. So that's it for me. Who's your 2 picks, Joe?
I can't believe you're going to talk about Cumming.
Yeah, I'm leaving it. You want to talk? I'm going to not talk about my pods, right? I want my pods to be pods.
But you already showed it in the team reveal video. How could you not talk about Cumming? Oh my God!
You can talk about him if you want. I'll leave that.
No, I'm not coming. I'm not talking about Cumming. Thank you very much. That's your pod. That's your selection.
Who's your 2 picks, Joe?
I wanted Callaghan, but fine. I'll go with Jared Witts. Witts was great. Witts, I think, he looked lean. He looked healthy. He looked in shape. And I thought that this guy, out of all the rucks, as amazing as Darcy was, and he showed how great he was in that game, I just think Witts is such a clean player in terms of the way he just He goes about his business. He's no nonsense. He will win the tap, hit out to advantage. He will ton up with ease, and he won't have any durability issues. And he's the main guy. He only had 65% TOG, and he tonned up. You know what I mean? It's great. And he even added a goal to his tally as well. So if he's making his way around the ground, he's getting involved more. I think this guy is fairly safe to say he's a top 2 ruckman. I'm not even joking at this point. So if you have the money and you're able to afford a guy like Witts, definitely go for it. Nathan is asking about Noah Anderson. He was not going to be my guy, but just for you, good sir, we'll talk about Noah Anderson. Noah Anderson, look, he had 16 CBAs, which is obviously nothing to sneeze at, but he only had 64% time on ground. If you are a player, if you are a person, a super coacher, looking to try and to be convinced to pick Noah Anderson, this was not the game. Noah Anderson is that game that he gave us this week was specifically for all those people out there who have done their research, have already liked what they saw in Anderson. There was nothing there that was to turn you away from him. It was understandable that this is a pracky game. It's nothing serious. And that 64% time on ground was really indicative. He only had 17 disposals. It wasn't anything crazy. Nothing alarmed me at all. I think he's still a very viable pick, personally speaking. I myself, though, I'm just not going to go there. I want someone who's more proven, personally.
So who's your second?
I'm going with Green. I'm going with Green. But Green can pump out 130s, baby. You know, I'm not sure Anderson can do that.
Are you going to talk about him, or are you going to?
No. Tom Green speaks for himself. If anyone needs to be convinced that picking Tom Green, I'm sorry, sir. I'm very sorry. You got to go and do your research. This guy is the fattest of locks. The fattest of locks.
Yeah. For me, I'll do a quick mention. So I've got Cumming in my team. I think he's going to do really well. Basically rated elite in every stat. The biggest knock for him is Himmelberg and Whitfield. What happens? I think Whitfield's probably going to score around the same. And looking at Himmelberg's scoring, so speaking to a guest that we have on tomorrow's podcast or tomorrow's episode, GWS isn't going to move Himmelberg if he's scoring 3 goals a game. They want to win. They need to do well. So if he's doing as well as what he's doing, regardless if the number 1 pick comes back in to the team, I don't think Himmelberg is going to move. If he has a few blind or stinking games, maybe he does. But they need tools, and he's going to do really well for them. So I've picked Cumming. Hopefully the pod pick works, expecting like a 110 average-ish. We'll see. If you look at his trajectory in scoring, it's basically going up, 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 up. So I'll take the gamble there. If it doesn't work, I'll sideways him. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just go to Ridley.
All right.
Oh, wait. You already have Ridley.
I already have Ridley. Maybe a Dacos or somebody.
Good luck. Get tagged. Get tagged to oblivion. Well done.
So we have Bulldogs and North Melbourne. This is the game that I really wanted to talk about. And Corey, hopefully you're still in the chat. We'll have a chat about Cam Zohar and Sheasel as well. So North came off doing okay against Richmond. I don't think they were playing as well as like what they've done in the past. And, you know, a lot of people saying they didn't hit first gear. But, boy, oh boy, we stunk against the Bulldogs. Not even the fact that the Bulldogs are basically running the best forward line in the AFL, in my opinion. Joe thinks Brisbane's there. I think the Bulldogs are pretty close. We just stunk. Just like poor disposals. It was like we had forgotten our entire preseason of what we had been doing. And then just came out and was just like, oh, okay, it's back under our previous coaches and, you know, all the stuff's done. Even with Cunnington back, even with LDU back, we didn't really have a lot of outs in the team. We just didn't look good. So Simpkin and McDonald doing as well as they did. Zeeble probably, you know, I think, yeah. I don't like the pick over other people, but if you want to pick him, you can pick him as a pod. What did you think of the Bulldogs, Joe?
I thought, look mediocre, right? I'm just kidding. They look sensational. Of course, they look sensational. They're a great outfit. I think Bevo is the luckiest coach in the competition. The guy has such an amazing list, and he keeps finding ways to mess with it and play people out of position. So much talent. My God, give me the gig at the bloody Bulldogs. We win the flag. They are so stacked. Libba was amazing. Without
Who's your two
Duncan
people,
on the side, huh? My two
Who's
people.
Yep.
All right. First person, I'm gonna leave Bont to you. I think the first person is gonna be Baker, Oscar Baker, someone that he wasn't even meant to play. He was not gonna play, but they had so many injuries. They ended up putting him on the field. And my God, this guy's so lucky. He managed to play out of his skin, was blessed that he was up against the shit North Melbourne side, and was able to play himself into a round one debut, I reckon. He was so good. 85% TOG, 22 disposal and a goal for 111 Supercoach points. That is insane.
Pretty good.
And also, we're going to go with the old man, Liam Jones. I think this dude absolutely tore it up. He looks 25 again. What is going on? He drank the elixir of youth. While that's the reason why he didn't want to get injected with COVID vaccine. It kept him young, apparently. Because look at him. The guy was a spring chicken all over again. It was insane. Now, don't expect 101 out of this guy every week. You're not going to get that from him. But he is certainly going to make you enough money. Well and truly enough money. He is a very good buildable option. 92% time on ground. 92, which is amazing. And 19, he was a top 10 intercept marker in the competition. He is so good. You got to lock him in, I reckon.
Guys, here at the Centre Bounce, we don't endorse Joe's poor medical advice. We don't tell you guys don't get vaccinated. I think that's a bad idea. Take your doctor's advice, wear a mask, all that kind of stuff. There's a couple here I want to speak about. I think Bont just did Bont things. Libbers are definitely a shout at 70K. I think he's really going to take a lot of that Dunkley role. We saw last year when Dunkley was out, and also when Dunkley performed poorly, he did really well. I think the ones for me today, and obviously Dale did quite well. I think that the thing's a bit of a trap though. Once Daniel gets moved back into that back line, I think Dale's not going to do that well. So I've got here talking about Sheasel, who we'll just talk about now. I love the player. I just don't think it's very relevant for Supercoach. I think at that price, at close to 200K, you can do a lot better, especially in that forward line. I think there's better options. You know, go up and pick up a Flanders, go down and grab a Green or someone else. So he's a no for me. McLean is probably one who I'll talk about now, as was in basically everyone's team and now he's not. Just didn't perform very well. Was speculated that he was in the B team, that kind of thing at the Dogs and during the interclub games. And yes, maybe he was because they have to play somebody, but just didn't perform that well and really kind of showed that, hey, there's better options there. And I think him being so poor in this game, in a game where they dominated, you know, why is he not scoring higher than a 45? Another one as well who I'll look at is LDU. So a lot of people picked him as a breakout, and yes, I think he will do well. But with 90% time on ground, he just didn't do it for me this game. He kicked the goal, which was fantastic, had a decent amount of clearances and contested possessions, but he's going to have games like this, and I think it's too much of a risk. For 20 points more, you can get Libba, who's more mature in a much better team, and I think he's going to, you know, at least push for a top 10 spot this year. I think there's a much better option there for that price. Agree with Joe on Jones. Joe, we have a question about, before I go into Corey, hopefully Corey's still here, had a question about Crozier, Joe. What do you think of him?
Crozier was very cool. I think Crozier really benefited from the fact that Jure went down so early in the game, had a neck brace, and then soon after, Ed Richards also got injured. It just allowed him to really flourish and will and truly be one of the primary ball movers off halfback in addition to a Bailey Dale. He was very clean with his disposal. I thought he was great, personally speaking. He absolutely started flying up in terms of his Supercoach scoring, like an absolute rocket after that, until he injured the webbing, I think, in between his hands when he was bleeding. But he was absolutely killing it. I think he only had like 70% time on ground. So no, Crozier he scored 79 off of 53% time on ground. Like, it was very, very impressive, the amount of scoring that he was getting for the time. I think this guy, probably his job security is a bit more sus than Liam Jones, but I think his ceiling is definitely better than Liam Jones's. So I think is a very fair pick, personally speaking. I think the ownership percentage doesn't reflect how good of a pick he is. I think you can certainly go for him. I have him in my team, personally speaking, right now.
So Corey was just talking about the Sheasel impact. So Zurhaar, I think in general, has fallen off. It's not a popular take, but I think Zurhaar's fallen off a little bit in that forward line. I don't think he's worth the $550K that the club's paying him to play. But in saying that, I think our forward line's going to start getting dominated by these younger kids. I think Zurhaar's a bit of that enforcer as well. So, but I think our forward line is going to starting to get dominated by these younger kids, these kids who take the game on, who aren't scared. Paul Curtis is a big example of this. You saw when he came out and just jumped into Zurhaar to go for the ball. Like, that was fantastic in the Dogs game. I think Sheasel's kind of that next level of X factor. Yes, he does well in that back line, but I think with another member of our forward line missing, Sheasel's going to be able to set up, some people, set up some goals, not be as kind of pushed out with Zurhaar not playing, and will do quite well for us in that position. So I think he plays. I think he probably plays in the forward line and maybe gets moved to the back line. I think back line in general should be defenders. Take one or two wingers who are now halfback flankers, but you've got to be able to tackle. We just don't have guys who tackle in that back line, and it's our biggest issue. So Sheasel, forward line, take over Zurhaar. Big thumbs up for me, at least for round one.
Yep. Got a question here from Hippo Supercoach. Welcome aboard, man. Well done. Loving your content as well. I'm watching and I'm a subscriber of your stuff. If you guys haven't subscribed to Hippo, he's great personality, guys. Have a look at him. Jeremy McGovern, man, this guy is an amazing scorer, top intercept marker. He's sensational. And the way the Eagles play, they just love to chip the ball all around in the back line, just play that switching, possessive type of football. The thing with him, though, is he's just a ticking time bomb for an injury waiting to happen. I mean, he only played, 10 games last year, 15 games the year before, 12 the year before that. Like, his run with injury is really bad. In terms of scoring, he's going to be sensational, but how long will that scoring last? He could get injured in the first week, or second week, or third. You never know when it's going to happen. So I'd probably steer clear of McGovern, personally speaking. But thanks for the question, man.
We had a question about Josh Bruce.
Yeah, here, 17 disposal, versatile player. 17 disposals. That is very correct. But I don't think those disposals were really good. He had a couple of absolute brain fades. I think he kicked a couple on the full or something. Look, I think for the price, I don't know if
it's a no for me at the moment. It's a no. I think Jones takes the intercepts, which was kind of the shining light and the hope for Bruce's scoring this year. At the moment, I think that backline's too stacked. Maybe Crozier comes out, maybe Jones gets injured, that kind of thing. Bruce shines a bit. He hasn't actually done the position before at senior level, I think, or at least in the team this year. So maybe there's a shout there. Just have to wait and see. But at the moment, there's better options. If he's going to score, what did he score? If he's going to score 60s, you can pick someone else who's going to score 65 for the same price.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But thanks for the question.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to move to the last game for today. Yeah. And thanks everyone for joining in. We've had a lot of We've got 16 people on the stream. Like, that's bloody amazing. So thanks very much. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe. We're trying to reach 1K. So we'll do that, and then we'll start smashing out some more content as well. It's going to be a big season. This is the first episode of our Monday kind of talks, and then our team reviews and things like that, what we're going to do for the season. So, yeah, hope you guys can stick around. Melbourne and Richmond, Joe. So do you want to take us through Melbourne and Richmond?
It's a great way to end because I think these two, their midfields are really good, but there was one team that was clearly a lot better than the other, and it's had a lot to do with the tandem that was Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy. These two, especially early on in the game, it was like a cheat code. The Tigers had no answer. It was just an absolute goal fest for Gawn and Grundy. They both kicked 3 goals apiece. They couldn't stop them. They're marking, they're leading, they're agile and have size. It's going to be scary, but it's scary for the competition. But for us super coaches, it's going to be awesome because we're going to have a Max Gawn a forward status Max Gawn. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's ridiculous. That is absolutely insane. We're going to have a forward status Max Gawn come round 6. 17 disposals and 3 goals. Obviously, you're not going to expect Gawn. Be prepared. Absolutely.
You're going to struggle to bring him in. He's going to be expensive, but he's going to be a real difference. Last year, we saw the likes of Parker coming into that forward line and the guys that had him doing a lot better than the guys that don't. This is a much better pick. Yes, it's more expensive, but this is a much, much better pick. Who's your 2 people, Joe?
Maxi Gawn was the first one, as I was talking about him. Maxi Gawn absolutely killed it. He's not going to kick 3 goals every game, I don't think, but he's shown that it's going to be something scary. He's going to have an insanely high ceiling, and he's 100% going to be a top 6 forward. So as Big J said, make sure you're able to bring him in come round 6. And the other player that is obviously really good, Tim Taranto, has just cemented why he's going to be a lock in everybody's team. He had 20 CBAs. That's what you want to hear. 33 disposal and a goal. That's typical Tim Taranto stuff. He's going to be in the guts. He's going to push forward and kick goals. For 503K, you absolutely cannot go wrong.
Yeah. So I've got 2 here. One guy that we've spoken a bit off field about, sorry for ruining the pod, is Jake Bowie. So coming in at 380-ish K off the back of what he did last year, seems to be the number 2 guy. So we spoke about Wayne Miller being the guy with Sinclair. Bowie seems to be the same with Stephen May. So really come and watch there. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it all year and is a really awkward price. So worth a pick if you're gutsy because it's going to work out. But if you're not, then that's fine. The kid's on fire. You rewatch that game for how good he is. He's worth the 128 in this game. The second player I'm going to kind of look at is Oliver. So there's a reason why I think the trend at the moment is to move into Laird and not Oliver. And this is a perfect example of doing that. So if Oliver scores this in round 1, 2, or 3, he's going to tank in price.
Yep.
This is a game where Melbourne dominated, where Melbourne's midfield dominated, where the team just did really well, and he couldn't put up 100. Looking at his stats, so let me just quickly pull up his time on ground. Okay, so Oliver still played 85% time on ground. So it's not like he only played half the game. He was there for basically the whole game and only scored a 95. So yes, he may come in and do a lot better, but these are the games that we have to be careful of. You will be able to get him at a much cheaper price and expect to do that at some point early in the season. One of these poor scores, 2 of these poor scores in a row, just the way that Gawn moves in the team, the way that Petrarca moves, the way that Brayshaw's now taking a lot more mid-time. There's some talk that Oliver's now even doing a little bit of half-back and helping in the back line, moving the ball. So have to pull up the heat maps to kind of have a look at, if they're available, what he's done. But, yeah, someone to really be careful of. 31 disposals is fantastic. 2 of these stinker games, you don't want to be spending 700K for a guy who now other people can get it a lot cheaper. Yes, he only had 64 disposal efficiency, but still, even if he didn't, if that goes up to an 80, he's still only scoring like a 110 instead of the 120s and 130s like Laird did in his game. So really someone to watch out for there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of report that, I don't know how much you can really take this, as gospel truth. There's going to be playing more halfback because they're going to have to be a lot more versatile and have a lot more people running through. And you can see that they do have, because they do have more people going through the middle. They had Petrarca, he had 15 CBAs. You had Alex Neil-Bullen, who had 7 CBAs. Clary had his 20, of course. Rivers had 1. Cozzy Pickett is running there a lot more. He had 13. And Harms had 20. Angus Brayshaw had 4. Sparrow had 12. They're really passing a lot more players through the midfield. Very Geelong style. And that's just the way the game is. Whenever the Premier wins through a certain way, they have a certain style of playing, something that really worked for them, other teams are going to copy them. Other teams are going to try and implement that into their system because they want to win. And the best way to win is by doing what the winners do. Yeah. So it's no surprise. There's a lot more mouths to feed in that Melbourne midfield. And having a guy like Grundy I wouldn't even classify as a ruckman. Grundy is like an extra midfielder at this point with his ability at ground level. He's, most of his damage that he does is not in the rucks. It's on the ground and his spread and involvement in the play. So if you're comparing Clayton Oliver to Rory Laird, I think it's clear. And if you watch our Rory Laird review video, I get fairly passionate to the point where I get disconnected off the video. It is, I get animated. Yeah, I'm very passionate. I'm a passionate guy, especially when it comes to Rory Laird. No slander of Rory Laird. I was a bit disappointed though in how Hopper played. I thought Hopper would probably do a bit better, to be honest. Given all the hype surrounding him, he had fair number of disposals, only 23 disposals, and off 25 CBAs. You know what I mean? Like I thought there was going to be a bit more output out of him and get 93.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could happen. He was playing against Melbourne, so definitely someone that I still think you got to lock in. Someone that you have 100%. Considering his price, if he goes in the 90s, that's sort of what we want him to do to make us the 150k. But you would hope that he can push that average to around 100. And that would be really good.
Yeah. Speaking about Oliver as well, just before we head off, last year we saw him and Petrarca share a lot of that mid-time. Without the Hunter, without the Brayshaw, all these guys coming in. Oliver went big, Petrarca didn't. The games where Petrarca went big, Oliver didn't go as well. So now he's got to share a lot more time around with everyone else. I don't mind the Hopper, as Joe was saying, but we brought him in to score a 90 to 95, and the guy scored a 93. So even when they get smashed in the midfield, he still scores well enough for us to make cash. So it's not too bad. You'd be happy with that. Baker at the moment seems to be touch and go for round 1. I think he had a bit of an injury in this game, so he's someone to watch out for. One I will say is Hardwick does really well with picking out good, mature age players. The role may not be there, but Tyler Young, number 45 over here, could be a shout. Comes in as a 102k rookie. I think they PSS or SSP preseason picked him up, or rookie draft picked him up. The guy called Cosda, the guy got a 65. So yes, they got smashed in the back line, but at 102k could really be a shout. Just wait and see if his name's round 1. You could gamble on him if you don't have enough money for someone else. He's only got to play 3 or 4 games, and he's made enough money for you to at least get someone else to upgrade, or 5 or 6 games into a season, and 102k now becomes 250 pretty quick. So definitely a shout there.
He's, depending on the rookies that's named in round 1, there's a few defensive rookies that we're sort of up in the air about. Chesser, up in the air about whether or not he plays. St Kilda, whether he plays. Cowan, St Kilda and Cowan both fighting for that last spot. You now got Young here. There are quite a few defensive rookies that you don't want to field. Just a question of which of them gets named in round one to have on your
pretty
bench.
much. So we're just saying here, he's got Gawn. It's the same price as a primo midfielder, so worth it. Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm just holding off until he gets DPP because I just can't afford him at the moment, and it's the inconsistent scoring. Like, he's not going to score 153. He went on a tear. Next week, he could come out and score a 90. So it's fantastic for a forward line player, but to kind of start with, I'd rather get more of a sure pick. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. So Max Gawn, he's 622K. So he's priced at so
like
if we do 622, 622 divided by 5.5 is 113. So he's priced at 113. For him to maintain his price, he has to average 120 just to stay at his price. He's not, if he averages 110, which is still a great average, he's still going to drop in price. So you might as well wait for him to drop in price, because I think a guy like Witts can go 110 no problem as an average as the R1. So you can save money by going a guy like Witts, who's guaranteed to be the solo premium ruckman for the Suns. He'll go roughly 110. You wait for Gawn, who might go something similar, to drop a bit more in price, and come round 6, bang, straight into your forward line. Thank you very much. Show me the value. Give me all the value.
Well, hey guys, that's our first episode of the preseason watch. So we're going to be doing these every Monday, basically, throughout the season and into the finals as well. Thanks for sticking around, the 17 of you guys who were there. And thanks for putting in your questions as well. We really appreciate kind of the fan engagement. We're looking at building that a lot more this year. Any final words, Joe, before we head off?
We have a spicy video, a very spicy video coming out tomorrow, guys. It is going to be great. You got to stay tuned, like, share, subscribe, all that amazing good stuff. We're pumping up the content. It's all coming out here directly to you, wonderful, wonderful people. And please remember one thing. Here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so that you don't have to. Bye for now.
Yeah, stick around for the next 2 weeks, boys. It's going to be massive.
Let's go!